Hello, hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to our Facebook Live. I am Coach Kimberly and I'm here with Coach Brian today. We're going to talk about reasons why your VA claim may have been denied. Um, Definitely sound off in the chat where you're tuning in from, what branch of service you were serving, how long you were in service for. Are you a member of the VACI family? Just let us know what's going on in the chat. Coach Brian.
Hey, good morning, Coach Kim. I'm glad to be here with you this morning. It's a beautiful day. I'm calling in from East Texas, the piney woods of Sam Houston National Forest. And I'm happy to be here. It's a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a great day when we are here educating veterans on what could be, as well as what could have happened in terms of their claims journey. But yeah, you're in Texas. I'm in Kansas City. It's beautiful outside. I really haven't been outside all day so far.
You're
But we've
enjoying
been
it through
getting
the window.
yeah, we've been getting, well, the balcony door. We've been getting some good weather here. For the past few days. I know we got like 10.8 inches of snow a couple weeks ago. That was horrible, but we're here today. So always happy to be here with the gang. Of course, sound off in the chat again where you're tuning in from, maybe what the weather is like where you are. Again, let us know what branch you served, how long you served. We're here to answer your questions at the end of our presentation.
Ivan's sounding off from Hawaii. I bet it's
Oh,
really nice there right
nice.
now.
Oh, beautiful weather. Hello, Ivan. Thank you for joining us and thank you for spending time with us today.
All right.
Mr. Robert was a firefighter in the Air Force, says that he has a lot of disabilities that are presumptive in the PACT Act. Okay, we'll get to that at the end. But
Sure.
thank you for joining us today. Again, thank you all for joining us and spending this beautiful Wednesday with us. Again, it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. Again, definitely sound off in the chat and we'll get to things. Any questions at the end? Anything that we don't get to in our session today, again, we have our team that will answer those questions for you all at the end. So again, if you don't get to answer, please don't feel offended. Again, there are a lot of questions coming in, but we have our team that will get to things at the end.
Yeah, we're absolutely eager to help veterans. It's what our passion is. It's why we're here. It's not likely that we'll be able to answer every individual question in this one session. So
Right.
we'll get to the ones we can, and the ones we can't, we'll try to provide you a next step to get that question answered. Whether that's a discovery call
Right.
or something like that. That's always a good opportunity to find out what we're about and how we can serve you.
Right.
Um, yeah,
Or signing up with us on viaclaimsinsider.com, right? The
absolutely.
discovery call, you can reach out to ask questions. We're here to educate as best as possible, and you can definitely sign up with us at viaclaimsinsider.com. I see Mr. Alonzo. Hello, how are you? Mr. Hunter tuning in from Texas, infantry for 4 years. Awesome. Miss Jennifer tuning in from South Carolina. Thank you all for joining us. Oh, Mr. Eaton, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. You're tuning in from Cali, Colombia, a
Oh,
whole
wow.
other side of the country. Well, a part of the world, South America.
Yeah.
Beautiful weather there. Mr. Tony, VA Claims Insider is awesome. Absolutely. We love helping veterans. Thank you for that shout out, sir.
So Michael asked a question about a recording. Will there be a recording of this presentation after the fact? Obviously, we're doing a live class, but he's not
Yeah.
going to be able to be here for all of it.
Yes, yes, yes. There's going to be a recording. It's usually posted on YouTube. I'm not too sure on when the postings come out, but I'll ask Kat if she can pass that information on to Mr. Tony at the end of our presentation.
Looks like
Absolutely.
we've got a couple different vets here who are in the middle of those Board of Appeals, and they've got those prolonged waiting periods. So I can understand why that requires just a monumental exercise in patience, right? Because that's like the most time-consuming,
Yeah.
portion of the whole process.
Yeah, it definitely can be BVA claims. Not something that we educate on, but definitely all the best to you in your journey. All the best to all the veterans in their journey, claims journey, wherever you are in that process. Be sure to be as educated in this process as possible. Again, today we're going to go over some reasons why your claim may have been denied. So again, grab any information that applies to you, that you think that applies to you. If you're not too sure, again, reach out for a discovery call. We are here to educate, again, as best as possible. All right, so before we get into the presentation, again, my name is Coach Kimberly. Before joining VA Claims Insider, almost 3 years now, I was a mental health professional for about 4 years, where I helped veterans as well as civilians, just to get a grab on their mental health and any form of drug abuse that they may be experiencing. So again, it's been awesome. I love helping others. It's absolutely fulfilling, and I'm just happy that you all um, welcome me. So, yeah, throw it over to Coach Brian.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name's Brian Wright. I'm a 20-year Army veteran. I served as a medic from '03 to 2023, so also coming from a medical background. A little bit of experience with the mental health side of the house, not in not in terms of anything clinical, right, but just as part of the holistic approach to healthcare for the members of the armed forces that I served with. Got quite a bit of exposure to that.
Mhm.
Any of you who are Army veterans, if you've heard of the Master Resiliency Training, I also went through that program to be one of the leaders for that. So got some good resources there. What I thought was really interesting is one of the first people who chimed in, I believe his name was Robert. He said that he was an Air Force firefighter.
Mhm.
When I originally was enlisting, that's exactly what I was trying to do. I got to MEPS and the Air Force wouldn't let me pick my job, and that's how I wound up in the Army instead.
You said wound up. Come on, Brian. Army's great.
No, I have
All
no
classes are
I
great.
have
It's
no
so good.
complaints. It turned out great.
I'm just
Um,
messing with
but
you.
but I didn't get my first choice because they
Right.
wouldn't give me a choice. So
Right.
all things
Understood.
have a way of working out.
Understood, no problem. Thank you so much, Coach Brian, for being with me today. But yeah, let's jump into things. We're gonna go through the disclaimer, and then we're gonna jump right into things. All right, so with the disclaimer, we are not accredited agents, VSOs, attorneys, or any other entity recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs. We are not affiliated with the VA in any way. VA Claims Insider is an education-based coaching company for disabled veterans exploring eligibility for increased VA disability benefits and who wish to learn more about that process. VA Claims Insider also connects veterans with vetted independent medical opinions in our preferred provider network for medical examinations and independent medical opinions for a wide range of disability conditions. Now, again, we are an education company, right? Again, what we offer here is the SEM method, right? It's proven time and time again. Strategy, education, medical evidence. It's very important to have all three of those.
Yep.
Now, of course, we offer our one on one coaching or strategy session where when you are signed up with us, you are paired with a coach. Again, you'll go through the steps of uploading documents. The coach will review the documents, have the strategy session, build strategy, and then move forward again with either building medical evidence and going forward with claims. Here we also offer our education classes on a daily. We have live Zoom classes 3 times per day. We have our coffee with the coaches, which is like a very big warm hug in the mornings. We have our mental health exam education class, and we also have our medical exam education class. Again, it is very important to be as educated as possible with the conditions that you're experiencing. And we'll get into things, but when it comes to the claims journey, or just in general, how the VA award claims, they look for two things: causation and aggravation. So it's very important to be as educated as possible. Is your condition caused by maybe an in service event, an injury, an illness, or is your condition aggravated by a service connected disability, possibly? But we'll dive into things here in a few.
Yep.
Of course, again, you want more information, you want to learn more, sign up for a discovery call. Reach out to our team member at VA Claims Insider. VAClaims.help. I'm just so used to saying VA Claims Insider. But yeah, reach out to our organization at VAClaimsinsider.com and we will love to help you on your claims journey. We know it can be tedious at times and can be frustrating. We want to take out that frustrating aspect. Okay. But again, thank you all for joining us today. Still chime in the chat, still drop your questions, and at the end, we'll dive into things. Now, again, so our presentation today, again, the top reasons why your claim may be denied or may have gotten denied. One of the number one things is assuming a medical condition is service connected, right? So again, despite having that documented medical condition in your medical records, you can't assume that is going to be automatically service connected. As I said before, it needs to be where there is proof that verifiable events happen within active duty, which would be a causation factor, as well as it could be an aggravation factor. So to receive disability benefits, you must prove that the condition is either caused or made worse by a military service or a service connected disability. Right. So that's one of them. And again, not reviewing another one is that not reviewing your medical records before you file your claim. You definitely need to know if you have a diagnosis, what are your symptoms, being as educated as possible before filing your claim to make sure that there's accurate information in your medical records is very important. We are going to drop a blog link, I believe, at the end where you can, of course, where to find your military medical records. Again, those may take a little time to be retrieved, but I would still suggest that you try to get your military service records. I would not suggest waiting to file your claim based on getting those records because it may be timely. So, just a heads
Yeah.
up there.
It can be very time consuming trying to get that stuff, through manual requests. So,
Yeah,
uh, at the very least, if you end up working with us, having that conversation with your coach, whether you're already service connected for conditions or maybe this is the first claim you've ever tried to submit, um, give us the opportunity to explore that space with you and figure out what exactly it is you need to support those claims.
right.
Not that we don't want you to request your records, but it may not be necessary depending on the claim you're trying to submit.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Brian. Another one is the VA deadline was missed, right? There are certain claims where the VA may reach out to you via your va.gov portal to say, hey, go ahead and get this form done, right? For example, if you're filing for a PTSD claim and the VA, they don't see your 0781, which is a stressor form. Some veterans may need may need to do that form. And if they're saying, hey, we don't see your stressor events, and they reach out to you to get that form done and you miss that deadline, that may be a cause for denial because they're not able to find your stressor events if you have not provided them with the specifics. So again, if you filed a claim, be sure that you check your va.gov portal a couple times per week, keeping up on top of what's going on. But missing a deadline could be a grounds for denial. Again, gathering the relevant medical evidence, getting that submitted, being as detailed as possible, providing the VA with as much details is very important. Again, they have their team of researchers that need to dig and find what you're speaking on so that they can provide you with what's needed.
One of the things that we say in house all the time is how no one else should care about your claim more than you do. Obviously, we're in the business of trying to help veterans uh, get their claims ready to go. Right? We provide that education, the empowerment. We equip you with the knowledge you need to be successful.
Right.
Um, but when the VA is attempting to communicate with you, saying, "Hey, we've received your claim, but we're missing this element and
Mhm.
we need a response from you in order to be able to process your claim," then the onus is on you to take action. And if you're not responsive in a timely manner, um, they will just outright deny that claim on the basis of not getting the response they needed from you.
Right.
And
Right.
that then creates a little bit more of an uphill battle to try to get them to overturn that denial, right? When we get to the part where we talk about different claim types, supplemental claims require introducing new evidence. So if you turned in everything the first time, or what you thought was everything, and they said, hey, we also need this one more item, and you don't provide it, you may be stuck when it comes time to go back and challenge that decision.
Right. And again, the VA have they have a couple different appeal processes, and that's why it's very important when that decision letter comes back is to review that decision letter in its entirety. And again, that is something that we as coaches we educate our veterans on. Hey, this is what we found in your decision letter. This is what we saw that it was missing. Let's go ahead and either do this type of appeal or this type of appeal, whichever one that fits that type of denial. So, absolutely, Brian, thank you for that.
I've personally found in my experience working with vets that those decision letters for denied claims are one of the most valuable pieces of information that they can share with me, right? Because even though a denial is not the answer that you're looking for,
Mm-mm.
in that letter, they provide a rationale explaining why that claim was denied. And that information is valuable because it tells you what new information you need to produce in order to re-engage with the VA and get that decision overturned. So those letters, even though they're not providing you the answer you want in the moment, they are giving you the clues on what you need to get the answer you're looking for.
Correct, correct. And again, different types of appeals calls for different types of conversations. So with a high-level review, you have to come with that balance in argument, as good argument that is, as well as a supplemental adding that new and relevant evidence if something was missed. But absolutely. And that's why we say, hey, reach out to us via claims .help. We are here to educate you as best as possible. Another big one, right? Another big one is that there wasn't enough or wasn't enough evidence to prove to the VA that, hey, causation or aggravation. Again, medical evidence wins claims. You
Mm-hmm.
have to have the diagnoses, the symptoms, the medical evidence to back up your claim, but also showing the causation or aggravation factor. Now, when submitting a claim for the VA disability benefits, you want to include sufficient and appropriate evidence. Again, you cannot submit evidence that has already been reviewed by the VA. They will not consider that new and relevant. So the VA may deny your claim if you didn't include the sufficient evidence. While you may be honest in your claim, including enough evidence to support is essential. Again, we're you're dealing with medical professionals that they want to see, hey, Kimberly submitted, for example, IBS, and she's not proving that these are the symptoms that she has within the 30% category, but her medical evidence says 10% at 10% symptoms. And so if you're stating that, hey, you are in the 30% category, there needs to be proof. Medical evidence, again, needs to be outlined, but also reporting your symptoms to your medical professional that these are the symptoms that you've been experiencing. Getting seen by your doctor is very important, and we'll get into that here in a few. But
Yep.
that's a factor as well that could be the demise of the claim, not having the sufficient medical evidence. Again, while the VA has the duty to assist veterans in obtaining medical records, again, they may collect only some things, not all. Again, the VA may be overwhelmed with the amount of claim and they don't have the willpower or the manpower to go ahead and sort your medical evidence. So it could be that you need to have additional medical evidence. Of course, current diagnosis is needed when you're submitting for a claim. Also, an independent medical opinion, DBQ, buddy letters, service records, personal statements also helps to solidify and make your claim stronger. Very important to look at all of the medical evidence that can be sufficient for your claim. All right, another huge one is missing the CMP exam. This is the most important day of the claim process, the claim journey. Do not avoid the CMP. If the VA reaches out to you or their third party entity, do not avoid that CMP exam. This is their administrative exam. This is where they've asked, again, either their third party entity to reach out to you so that they can form a medical opinion and then get it sent over to them, the VA. So I do not suggest opting out of the CMP. I would suggest to go to the CMP exam, speak your truth, speak about what you're experiencing, and allow that medical examiner to form that medical opinion based on your reporting and the medical evidence that you provided. But missing a CMP exam can be grounds for denial. Just a heads up there.
Yeah, we talk about that being the most important day in the entire claims process for a reason, right? Like even if you come equipped, you've submitted a claim and you've included documentation of a diagnosis from your own provider, the VA reserves the right
Mhm.
to have a second opinion on uh, that diagnosis, right? And so they reach out to you and they try to be proactive about this. I want to say it's like within a 3-week window after your claim submission, they're supposed to attempt to contact you if they need that exam. And they will outright deny your claim if you do not engage. Now, before they get to that step, right, they'll try to call you. I think they try to call twice. And if they can't reach you, they'll send you a letter in the mail saying, hey, based on this claim you've submitted, you need an exam. We've scheduled one for you, and here's the appointment. If you receive the call, you have the opportunity to participate in that scheduling process so that they know when you're available. But if they can't reach you, they'll just assign you an appointment and you have to try to show up for it. And I think you only get one opportunity to reschedule before
Yes.
they're just going to say, nope, sorry, you didn't do the required step. So
Yes.
please don't underestimate the importance of that step in the process. It's an absolutely critical element.
It is very important. And again, and not all third party entities that the VA contracts give that opportunity to reschedule. Um, Also, when it comes to again the administrative exam, what is possibly missing in your medical records, you have that opportunity to speak. I know sometimes when we go to the doctor, we don't disclose all of our symptoms. And so getting to speak in this CMP exam is very important. Again, the VA, they have to form their medical opinion. I know there are some conditions that, again, most times or oftentimes they just do a records review or ACE exam. But if they call on you for a CMP exam, do not opt out. Please don't do that. All right. Another one is there's no specific diagnosis. Now, you must have a diagnosis to receive disability benefits. And so I know for some veterans, being exposed to presumptive conditions, or for example, if you're exposed to Agent Orange, that doesn't automatically qualify you for diagnosis. Instead, you need to show your condition is directly linked to your exposure. What are you experiencing? Getting seen by your doctor is very important. Describing your symptoms so that the doctor can see what is happening to see if they need to provide you with a diagnosis. And is that diagnosis directly linked to your exposure to the toxicity of Agent Orange? So, again, just being exposed to that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a diagnosis. You still need to get seen by your doctor. And of course, focus on pointing out your symptoms that you're experiencing, right?
I I actually
And
went
then
through this
take your care,
particular scenario myself with one of
right?
my first claims after I separated from the army, and it was just because I didn't know any better, right? Like the PACT Act had been signed. I knew that I had burn pit exposures and things like that, and I wanted to make sure I had that on record. But when I did, what I didn't realize at the time is when I went to submit this claim, I was trying to claim exposure. Exposure is not a condition. It's
No,
therefore there's no diagnosis. I didn't even have the basis to file a claim at
right.
that time. Now, if I had a diagnosis for one of the, numerous conditions that are presumed to be service connected, if you meet that criteria, then I would have had no trouble getting it service connected. But I didn't have the conditions to file the claim for at that time, right? So you live and you learn. Um, one of the things that I'm grateful for, just as a byproduct of coming to work for VACI, is being smarter about my own conditions, right? And knowing what the process is, so that I can not only help other veterans but also help myself along the way. Yeah, just if you don't have a diagnosis, it's kind of a non-starter, right? You
Yeah.
must have a condition to claim in order to receive a rating. So that's where it starts.
Right. And having the condition by itself doesn't automatically mean service connection. Again, there has to be the causation as well as it may be the aggravation. So there are a few things, there are a few different working parts and moving parts. Again, the causation, the aggravation, the diagnoses, you're proving all of that. It's a circle. You have to prove those factors. But yes, again, being exposed to burn pits, being exposed to toxicity in itself doesn't mean service connection. The diagnosis needs to be there, and of course, proving the causation or possible aggravation if it's an aggravation claim. So, absolutely, thank you for that, Brian.
Yeah.
Another one is, of course, using the wrong form to submit your claim, right? There are so many different forms in terms of claim submission. There is the 21-526 easy, which is the new claim or the increased form claim form. There is the 0995, of course, that's the supplemental form. There is the 0996, which is the high level review form. And so what it means is that, for example, if I submitted for PTSD in 2010 and I got that denied, and I come back in 2025 and I use the same 526 easy, then more than likely the VA is going to come back and say, hey, Kimberly, you submitted for this claim back in 2010. It was denied, so you need to use the proper form. The proper form would be me using the 0995, which is a supplemental. I'm adding new and relevant evidence. I'm showing the VA that, hey, I still have the diagnosis for PTSD. I am saying that this is caused by active duty, but I'm also showing them that, hey, I am currently being seen for the condition, and this is how it's impacted my lifestyle. So again, knowing the form, knowing what you have submitted for in the past, if you have been denied, you need to make sure that you're using the proper form. If you're not, again, it's going to cause for denial, but you can always go back and use the proper form with the evidence because it was never reviewed. So,
The flip side of that example is actually one that I just had recently with a veteran that I'm working with, where the original plan was for him to file a supplemental claim for his previously denied PTSD.
mhm,
Well, he didn't have a diagnosis. So he went and got an evaluation done with a mental health provider and came back with a diagnosis, and it wasn't PTSD. It was major depressive disorder. So when it
mhm,
came time to submit that claim, we were no longer doing a supplemental claim. We were now
mhm.
using the 526 EZ because it was a new condition that he was
Right.
filing for.
New
So
diagnosis,
yeah,
correct.
so the right form is critical. If you're not filling out the right paperwork, they're going to turn around and send it back to you.
Right. And this is why the education piece is so important, right? Because there are so many diagnoses, mental health diagnoses under one umbrella.
Hmm.
And again, just like what you said, he has a new diagnosis. He was denied for PTSD in the past, but now he is trying to service major depressive disorder. And by the VA standard, now you can submit the new diagnoses on the 526 easy. So again, the education piece when it comes to the claims process is vital, and that's why we are here. So again, you
Yep.
can always reach out to us at vaclaims.help for or help in that aspect. All right, another factor here is the doctor didn't provide sufficient medical evidence. Again, it's always important to get seen by a doctor that you are being heard by. So if I go to my doctor, for example, for my back, and he smooths over my symptoms and he doesn't document my symptoms that I have divulged to him, and I submit that documentation that he has provided me with that is not sufficient, and I submit that to the VA, then the VA is going to look at it and say, hey, you don't have sufficient medical evidence. You're saying that you're having spasms. You're saying that you are having this kind of nerve damage stemming from your back, but there's not sufficient medical evidence. And yes, the VA has their duty to have their third party or themselves form their medical opinion, but you have to provide them with that medical evidence. But it's very important that when you go see your medical provider, you are being descriptive as possible with your symptoms. How are you limited from the condition? What are you experiencing? What is the frequency, the severity, and the duration of your symptoms? Be your biggest advocate because you know what you're going through. The doctors cannot read your mind, the VA cannot read your mind. You need to provide them with what you're experiencing. Do not hold back. The whole point of the claims journey is for the VA to see again, is the service the causation? Is another service connected disability the aggravation factor? Provide them with the medical evidence that they need. So again, be sure again, sign up with us in terms of again reaching out to us via vaclaims.help, or you can reach out to us at vaclaimsinsider.com. We are here to help and educate as best as possible. And I'll throw it over to Brian.
Hey, thanks. So, one of the other things that could possibly lead to your claim being denied is the absence of a nexus letter. So these are particularly helpful when you're talking about secondary service connection, right? Now I'm going to take a moment and explain the difference between primary and secondary. So a primary service connection is a condition that resulted directly from events that took place during your period of service. If you were wounded in combat, if you were if you got caught a severe illness during that period of time that you were on active duty, things like that, that's direct service connection. It's relatively straightforward. It's especially easy to service connect if you're able to do so prior to separating. Of course, for many of you, we're probably not talking about that time frame. You're now out of service and you're trying to figure things out after the fact, and that's okay. All right. Secondary service connection is a little bit different. What this means is there's no record of me being treated for this particular condition while I was in service. However, this condition is directly related to another condition I have that is service connected. An example might be a relationship between tinnitus and headaches or something like that, right? Or a connection between, I've got a bad back and now my knees are also bothering me. Okay. These are the sort of things where a secondary service connection might be what you're looking at. And in those cases, you need to have that nexus letter. A nexus letter is an opinion expressed by a licensed medical provider that says, in my opinion, this condition is related to this veteran's service because it is related to this other service connected condition. And if you don't have that letter, the VA might likely deny your claim. Bear in mind, even though we can sort of logically work through the connection on our own, the rater probably can too, but they're not in the business of approving claims on the basis of non-medical opinions, right? They want that professional expertise in writing supporting that claim. Medical evidence wins claims. Coach Kimberly said it earlier. We'll probably say it a few more times before this presentation is over. You need to have the evidence to get the VA to say yes. And so don't overlook that particular piece. It may be essential depending on the claim you're trying to submit.
Absolutely.
Also, one final parting thought on that. Having a nexus letter does not guarantee that you will be awarded service connection, right? Some nexes are stronger than others.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Another reason your claim might be denied, choosing the wrong claims process. You're given a couple of different options when it comes to submitting claims, right? If any of you have ever tried to fill out a claim on your own on va.gov, as you're going through that process, filling out that 526EZ, you're going to get to a step where it asks you, is this a standard claim or a fully developed claim? A fully developed claim is one where you have all the evidence and the VA doesn't have to go looking for anything on your behalf. Uh, these are ideal in the sense that they tend to be processed more quickly because the VA does not have that burden of trying to find evidence for you. Really helpful if you're uploading documentation that shows a diagnosis and a clear nexus, or if you're looking for direct service connection, having the evidence that the root cause of that condition occurred during your period of service in writing is really helpful. If it's a combat injury or something like that, and you've got the award that you received for your combat action, that's credible. It's not medical, but it's credible, right? Like, hey, look, this event actually did take place while I served. So when you're able to provide all of the pieces, that's a fully developed claim. Not everybody can do that, right? Sometimes you don't have that piece of information you're looking for, and you're asking the VA to help you obtain that information. You're asking them to go dig through your service treatment record or something like that. That's considered a standard claim. And there's nothing wrong with submitting a standard claim if you know that you need additional evidence that you don't have possession of. So here's kind of the catch-22, right? If you don't have everything, stating that you're submitting a fully developed claim is doing yourself a bit of a disservice because they're not going to go looking for anything else. Likewise, if you do have everything you need, submitting a standard claim is doing you a disservice because they're going to waste time looking for stuff that you don't necessarily need to support that claim. So try to make sure in each instance the claim you are submitting is the correct type. If you happen to be working with a coach from VA Claims Insider, obviously we will help you make sure you identify the right type of claim to submit. We don't want to leave you trying to do guesswork on that.
Absolutely. And also just to add to that, the standard claims, they can take a while because you're constantly adding evidence, 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 evidence. And so the VA may not know when you plan to stop adding evidence. And so that may take a while for them to even adjudicate the claim. So it's best to gather your medical evidence, submit the documentation needed to support your claim, and then go forward. But again, you want to have that education on what best fits your situation. So just the
Right.
insider.
And obviously the particulars of each individual case is a little beyond the scope of this presentation.
Right.
That's what our coaching team is here for, though, right? If you sign on with a coach, they're going to dig deep into the particulars of your case.
Absolutely.
So the next thing that could possibly derail your claim is the absence of a disability benefits questionnaire, commonly referred to as a DBQ. They are not required for your claim, but they're highly encouraged. This is essentially a VA internal document. Many of them are available to the public. Like, it doesn't have to be a VA provider that provides this document. But they're formatted in a particular way. The VA obviously favors them for that reason. And they're useful because they get down to the specific details about the condition and how it is service connected, right? They will strengthen your claim. When appropriate, you want to utilize not just any evidence, but the best available evidence to support your claim. Okay. Now, bear in mind, if you're asking a civilian provider, someone outside of the VA, to fill out a DBQ on your behalf, there's probably going to be some kind of a fee associated with that request, right? I mean, that's common practice. They're not just treating your condition. Now they're providing you an additional service. That can get kind of pricey depending on how much help you're looking for and what exactly you need. We are also prepared to provide you resources in that regard, right? We can make referrals to help you obtain that documentation. Don't want to get too specific about it, but we do have a network of providers that we like to refer people to when appropriate. And if that's the evidence you're looking for, we can help you make that connection if you can't get it on your own. We'd rather provide you that information and access to that resource than try to push you to submit a claim that is incomplete and may not be successful.
Right. Yeah, fully developed claims, absolutely.
Yep.
And again, not all condition requires a DBQ in terms of to submit to the VA. There are some that requires that Nexus letter, medical evidence from your provider, statements to that effect. And so again, the VA will also do their internal DBQ when it comes to your claim.
They absolutely will. But speaking of the VA, the next thing that could possibly land you in a little bit of dissatisfaction with your claims is relying too much on the VA. Please understand that the VA does have a duty to assist you, right? That is literally their mission. They are obligated to try to help you, but you cannot necessarily rely on their work, on their internal work, to be everything you need to get your claim service connected. Okay. For example, if you receive healthcare at the VA, they're generally very good about treating you. Um, it's a little bit odd, but there's like some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Conflict of interest where they generally don't do such a great job about producing the documentation you need to submit your claim. Um, Sometimes you have to seek an outside referral in order to get the support you need for that. So just bear that in mind. Like, I'm not here to speak ill of the VA.
Never.
Uh, just understand you may not always get everything you need from them when it comes to the claims process. Uh, Now, failure to act on their duty to support uh, is grounds for an appeal, right? So if they're not doing their due diligence, they may be giving you causation to appeal a denied claim. Again, that's a little bit of a different conversation than what we're talking about as far as your initial claims are concerned. But again, that's what coaches are for, right? We're here to
Right.
help you understand that process and identify when that duty to act was not fulfilled correctly.
Right. That decision letter tells a story that us coaches can definitely educate a veteran on, because again, we can look at the evidence list, we can look at the decision narrative, and educate you that hey, this was missed in your decision making, or this is not listed in your evidence list. So yes, coaches, we are here to definitely educate on that piece for sure.
Hmm. Something else that we're definitely here for, it sounds a little bit silly, but proofreading, right? Because one of the things that can get your claim denied is if your forms are not filled out correctly. I mean, basic stuff like full name, address, phone number, where appropriate. Sometimes it's your social security number, right? Information that we consider protected personal information, right? That needs to be safeguarded. Well, when you're dealing with the VA, they have to have that information. And if you fail to provide it, if maybe you just habitually leave your social security number off of forms until you're ready to turn them in. If you omit that step, you may find yourself with a delay on your claim, right? Or they'd be like, oh, well, we were looking for this, but we don't have it. A signature, right? Little things like that. So again, if you end up working with a VACI coach, we have an internal resource. It's our VACI portal. Okay. We utilize that portal to communicate with veterans, to review documents. They upload them for us to examine. It's a secure portal. We utilize that instead of text or email because we don't want your PII being placed out in the open where it is not encrypted. And so when we're asking to look at your documents prior to a claim submission, we're trying to make sure that none of those things have been missed. And so we will review them and just, give you, hey, you know what? Everything's there. This is complete. You're ready for the next step. So just, don't let those small things get you hung up.
Right, like a wet signature versus a digital signature. You definitely need to have a wet signature on those important forms, such as again a stressor form. A buddy letter requires a wet signature, not
Mhm.
digital. Just a heads up there.
Well, and like a lot of the PDF forms that the government uses when it comes to that signature block, unless you're using, like a common access card, a CAC, you can't even put a digital signature in there. Like, unless you have that particular resource at your disposal. So oftentimes you do end up having to print the form out, manually sign it, and then scanning it back in as a PDF. And yes, it's a little bit of a headache, but that extra step may just be necessary, right? So
Absolutely.
taking the time, being attentive to the details, you know, we're here to help you through that, right? We want your claim to be successful. We don't want you to have to constantly restart because of a simple thing that would have been easy to fix if it was checked earlier on, right? Let's talk briefly about giving misinformation to the VA. Okay, under no circumstances do I want it to be construed that we think anybody in here is lying about conditions, right? That's not what we're saying. Okay, um, but understand that there is a difference between vocalizing the severity of your conditions and exaggerating, right? And it might be a little bit of a fine line. We always encourage our vets to communicate what their worst days look like, but not to blur that line into the realm of exaggeration, right? If you're misrepresenting yourself as you're obtaining your documentation, you're getting your evals done, your assessments, and you have that great paperwork, it looks like you have strong medical evidence, you submit it to the VA, and they say, okay, great, please attend this CMP exam. Now you have a follow-up exam by a different provider, one who is contracted by the VA. And I've actually seen this in a denial letter that one of my veterans received before coming to us, that the CMP examiner's opinion was that they had grossly exaggerated their symptoms, and that they actually used the word malingering. I I hadn't seen that word since I separated from the Army. It blew my mind that they chose to be that uh, descriptive, but that was the opinion of that examiner.
Okay.
So, we want you to remain truthful in all elements of this, right? Like integrity is a thing. Um, Nonetheless, make sure that when you're talking about your symptoms, don't be understating them either, right? An
Right.
accurate picture of the condition you're dealing with and its severity is essential to getting the appropriate rating. Go ahead,
Right.
Kim. You had something to say.
I was going to say frequency, severity, and duration of your symptoms. Being as descriptive as possible when you're experiencing the negative impacts from that condition, describe what it looks like. For example, with my back, there are times, maybe once every 3 months, where I have to roll out of my bed, literally, right? I can't stand up straight. Those are the days that I'm going to be describing, and I'm going to let them know, hey, there are once every 3 months my back is thrown out, I just can't do anything. But on my days I'm in chronic pain, right? I have to kind of squinch to get in my car. I have to sleep in a certain position. I can't stand too long to do dishes. I'm going to talk about how I'm negatively impacted. How is it taken away from my livelihood? Having fun with my 7-year old. So I'm going to talk about my lifestyle impact. So yes, absolutely.
And the same goes for mental health claims too, right? Like not every day is going to be the same. I'm service connected for PTSD. Doesn't stop me from having a great day. Today is a great day for me, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't have other days that are much harder, right? And so when I'm having those hard days, just because they're not all the time doesn't mean they're not relevant, right? So when it came to me getting service connection for that condition, when I sat down with that examiner, I did talk about my general state of mind, but I got into the specifics about on the worst days, this is what it's like, you know? And I mean, it worked out. I was truthful from start to finish. That exam was a bit lengthy and a bit of an emotional ringer, but I came out okay on the other side, and I got the rating that I deserved. So it's there for you, right? All right, pre-existing conditions. I've had a veteran that I've worked with over the last couple months who really had a hard time with this one. Um, he was a Vietnam era veteran, right? Or he is a Vietnam era veteran, excuse me.
Yes.
And he wound up being med boarded out of the service because of conditions that were preventing him from being able to execute his duties. The heartbreaking part of this is he came into the service with these conditions, and then they were exacerbated by a motor vehicle accident that happened while he was in.
Yeah.
Now, during his separation physical, the doctor said, hey, this is a pre-existing condition. This guy probably never should have served in the first place. And that's why to this day, he has struggled to get service connection for that. So, that's the truth of the matter. If you enter the service with a pre-existing condition, you're not likely to ever get that one service connected, right? If it becomes aggravated by another condition you have that is service connected, that's a different conversation. And the example I just gave of one of my vets didn't meet that criteria, right? So, there's some nuances to this, but one of the things you have to be understanding about is you can't claim the service caused a condition if you had that condition before you ever joined.
Right. And that is why strategy is very important, because you don't want to go back and forth. You want to go forth with conditions that are of least resistance. I know sometimes when we start the claim journey, we want to be vindicated, but we also want to look at the bigger picture. We don't want to go back and forth with the VA. That could be years. And so going for conditions that are of least resistance that you're able to prove is very important.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. All right. So, one of the other things that would be really helpful in trying to avoid getting your claims denied is understanding what the law says about service connection. Okay. So, the VA makes their rating decisions in accordance with their regulation. That regulation is called the CFR Title 38, Part 4. Okay. This thing is enormous. All right. If any of you decide that you want to Google it and have a look at it for yourself, be prepared to use Control F in order to search for specific terms related to your conditions. Because if you're just trying to read through the whole thing, oh man, I feel
Very,
bad.
very long.
There's way too much.
It's never
Okay.
ending.
Save yourself a little bit of frustration. Don't try to read through it page by page.
Yeah.
But that regulation specifies how the VA makes its rating decisions. Okay. The first step, we talked about it already. You have to have a diagnosed condition. Okay. Now, you have that diagnosed condition and you have a clear connection to your service, either direct or secondary, right? Okay. Now, the rating you receive is going to be based off of the severity of the condition. And this 38 CFR tells you what the markers are for what that rating looks like. So just as an example, I'll use sleep apnea. Okay. A lot of vets are getting diagnoses for sleep apnea. I was fortunate to get mine service connected because I got the diagnosis before I retired. Okay. Now, sleep apnea has a number of different ratings. The highest one is 50%. One of the markers that indicates
So,
eligibility for
so,
that rating.
so sleep apnea goes up to 100.
Does it?
Remember, yeah, it goes up to 100, but that's if you have respiratory failure, which we hope never no veteran or anyone get to that point.
Okay. I
50%.
apologize. Thank you for correcting me. You're
No,
absolutely
you're
right.
fine. You're fine because 50% is the common percentage that we see when veterans are able to service connect that either by causation or aggravation with a CPAP machine. So
And
the
that's where I
CPAP
was going
machine,
with it, right?
right?
So it's, having the prescription, right, for the CPAP machine is one of those descriptors that distinguishes that 50% rating from the lower ratings. And
Correct.
thank you for correcting me on that 100% one.
Absolutely.
I,
I'm here.
I, I honestly flubbed that one because I've literally never seen it.
Yes. I think I've only seen it once by another coach. He had a veteran that went up to 100%, but that's the only time I've ever seen it. None of
And
my
that's
veterans have ever
that's
done that.
obviously an extremely severe case. Like no
Absolutely.
one wants 100% rating for that,
Mhm.
right?
No, it's bad, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Respiratory failure is a factor there. But again, sleep apnea is best presented secondary, and we don't want to go in strategy, but it's best presented secondary to, again, primary conditions, right? It
Yes.
could be a multitude of things.
Yes.
So absolutely.
Yes. Okay. All right. So there you go. The importance of understanding what the law says about your specific condition, right? Whether it's a mental health condition, an orthopedic condition, any kind of medical diabetes, etc., right? Each one, the severity of the condition will affect what rating you're eligible for. So make sure that you understand what your conditions can and cannot do for you in terms of your rating.
Absolutely.
Let's see. I think we got just a couple more things to talk about, right? Um, why don't we talk, Kim? Why don't you take the lead on this? What to do if your claim has been denied?
Yeah, so again, it just depends on the specifics of your denial letter. And so it's very important. Again, there are different appeal processes. There's the high level review, there's the supplemental, there is the Board of Veterans Appeals. When it comes to VA Claims Insider and how we educate our veterans, we do not take on the task of Board of Veteran Appeals. And so, again, when fitted with or veterans, we look at the decision letter, and of course, we'll educate on either a high level review or possibly a supplemental. So there are different ways to get your claim looked at or relooked at based on adding new and relevant evidence, which is a supplemental, or based on doing a high level review, advocating for yourself in that high level review, letting the VA know that, hey, I did submit all of these pieces. It's clearly outlined in my evidence list, or this is how this went. And so there are different forms of appeals.
Okay.
For some insight there.
So we're nearing the end of our hour. Why don't we segue and try to get into a couple of these questions to see if we can help some of
Yeah.
these folks out with their particulars.
All right. I see a question here from Mr. Darwin Nolan. He says, I thought presumptive didn't warrant a CMP exam. So, for the claims process and the VA asking for a CMP exam, it could be on any condition. Any condition at all, the VA can reach out to their third party, or they themselves can reach out and say, hey, we want to get, again, the severity of your condition, the frequency, the duration, so that they can form their own medical opinion to award the appropriate percentage. So, yes, any condition can warrant a CMP.
I see a question from I see a question from Crystal. She's talking about her husband filing for his PTSD increase and the rating coming back with what they thought was inappropriate. And so she's talking about what should he do? Is an HLR appropriate? I think maybe it might be in this case, ma'am. HLRs, they do take a little bit of time. We're talking a period of, a year possibly, maybe a little bit longer. It depends on whether or not you request what is called an informal conference, right? But so the basis of the HLR, if I understand what you're asking, is that you don't think the rating percentage was correct, right? That is grounds to submit that. And there are definitely statements that you can file that explain why you think that is incorrect. I like how in your question you referenced that 6 out of the 7 symptoms for 100% rating were listed on his diagnosis. So I would definitely use that as part of your rebuttal, right? And obviously, when that goes to the HLR, you've got a different person reviewing the particulars of that, and that may just end up with them overturning the previous decision in your favor. If not, you're going to get a decision letter back from them explaining why, and then that gives you the information you need to figure out what the next step would be.
Right. And just to add to that, again, also the symptoms, the VA wants to know, how do your symptoms impair your lifestyle? So yes, they may miss a few of the symptoms, but if you're doing a high level review, you cannot add any new evidence. It's what's already submitted. So if you choose an informal conference, be prepared to have that conversation with the reviewer on what was missed, but also how is your life impaired? Work life, social life, personal life, whichever one is still active for the veteran. How are you impaired? How is your life not the way it used to be? So just a heads up there if you're doing a high level review. And I know we're coming to the end. Didn't have a lot of time for questions. I see a question here from Lazy Mo. I cannot pronounce that. Lazy Mo Prepper. I'm ready to submit evidence, but the VA hasn't asked me to give them any evidence for ED. So it just depends on, again, the claim that you're submitting. right? So again, if you've already initiated a claim, if you're still able to upload medical evidence via quick submit, via the regular va.gov account, then go ahead and submit that evidence. But if you haven't already done so, then you would be initiating a claim, either a supplemental or a new claim.
That same person actually asked a question a little bit earlier in the chat. It was specifically talking about a particular condition that he had been denied for. In order to get into the specifics of that and why it was denied, I would really want to see your decision letter, right? So if you end up working with one of our coaches, make sure you upload that letter, because that will explain exactly why it was denied and what additional information you need to get it approved.
Right. Again, you can always reach out to us at vaclaims.help. If you want to get associated with us in terms of getting a coach, you can always reach out to us at vaclaimsinsider.com. I know there was someone in the chat asking about getting their medical records. You can submit a FOIA request, which is the Freedom of Information Act. It may be timely, but if it's something that you need to have, go ahead and submit that request. Thank you all for joining us today. Again, strategy, education, medical evidence. We have live classes each and every weekday, except holidays, of course. Again, mental health education class, medical exam education class, coffee with the coaches. Thank you all for joining us. Kat will get to the questions at the end. She'll answer all of your questions, the ones that we were not able to get to. But thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for being here, giving us the opportunity to try to offer you some help. If you'd like to sign up for additional help, or have one of us assigned as your coaches, please do so. We are here to serve.
Thanks.